आई थिंक इंडिया का नसीब खराब है कि आसपास सारे टॉक्सिक लोग ही भरे पड़े हैं
And China is very paranoid and very scared about Islamic radicalization within China. So things are not very good between UNIS and the Americans now. So the change that essentially has happened in Bangladesh is that Bangladesh is becoming more Bangladesh. But what was the real intention of China putting money in Pakistan? If you keep on supporting Pakistan, you will keep these terrorists away from your own borders. That is China's main calculation. Gwadar Airport's first language is Chinese. Gwadar Airport's inside all staff is Chinese. Second language is English and third language is Urdu. It's the Pakistani Jamaat-e-Islami which is...
Correct.
And ISI also uses Jamaat-e-Islami to wield its influence in Bangladesh.
So what are the major challenges that Indian security forces, the Home Ministry, everyone will be facing for the next 1 year? When it comes to Bangladesh and West Bengal. Hello and welcome to the Pamphlet War Room. मैं हूँ निर्वा मेहता और आज हम बात करेंगे बांग्लादेश और उसकी बढ़ती हुई नज़दीकियाँ चाइना के साथ. हमारे साथ इस पर बात करने मौजूद है राजा मुनीब जी. वेलकम राजा मुनीब.
Thank you Nirva. Pleasure to be again with you.
Pleasure again. चलिए बात करते हैं कि शेख हसीना गवर्नमेंट को टॉपल हुए ऑलमोस्ट 1 साल हो गया है. ठीक है बांग्लादेश में, और मोहम्मद यूनुस केयरटेकर प्राइम मिनिस्टर जो गवर्नमेंट के रहे हैं वो है चीफ एडवाइज़र. तो माना जाता है कि वो यूएस के अमेरिका के सपोर्ट से वहाँ है. तो और ये भी माना जाता है कि शेख हसीना वाज क्लोज टू द चाइनीज़ गवर्नमेंट. तो क्या डायनामिक्स चेंज हुए पिछले 1 साल में?
See, there is no doubt that Yunus came in power because the Americans dislodged Hasina. Okay. And it is not that Hasina was very close to the Chinese that she was dislodged. On the contrary, Hasina was very close to India that she was dislodged. But Biden administration का जो आप कह सकते हो कि उनकी जो अपनी कैलकुलेशन थी, पॉलिसी कैलकुलेशन, they wanted a change in Bangladesh. So वो जो डेमोक्रेसी का उन्होंने वो सारा एक जो अमेरिकन्स का यूजुअल फार्स एंड डांस एंड सॉन्ग इज डेमोक्रेसी for others. So वो उन्होंने वहाँ बांग्लादेश में चलाया था. But जब से ट्रम्प आया, things have changed. Because if you understand, everybody knows and you know that मोहम्मद यूनुस ने ट्रम्प के खिलाफ इलेक्शन में पैसे भी दिए थे. He had contributed to the Democrats. So things are not very good between Yunus and the Americans now. Though जो बांग्लादेश मिलिट्री है, they have their leanings is more towards the Americans. यूनिस ने उसको काउंटर बैलेंस करने की कोशिश की है चाइना के साथ. And we have seen that happening. We have seen him visiting China. We have seen him offering the kind of offers he has made to China. We have seen all that happening. So the change that essentially has happened in Bangladesh is that Bangladesh is becoming more Bangladesh. You know, that's exactly what is happening in Bangladesh. Because if you see the way Yunus has gone about it, Bangladesh economic instability is increasing. अभी यूएस के साथ दे हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू ब्रेक हैव एनी सॉर्ट ऑफ डील ऑन ट्रेड. बांग्लादेश का अगर आज की डेट में आप टैरिफ देखते हो, इट इज़ अबाउट 35% एडिशनल टैरिफ विच इज़ अ टोटल एक्यूमुलेशन ऑफ अबाउट 52-51% टैरिफ विच इज़ वन ऑफ द हाइस्ट अमंग द वर्ल्ड अमंग द कंट्रीज जिस पे ट्रम्प ने अभी तक जो है टैरिफ लगाया हुआ है. एंड द एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ बांग्लादेश अबाउट $8 billion ऑफ ईयरली एक्सपोर्ट इज यूएस इज़ अ ह्यूज मार्केट फॉर बांग्लादेश. जो $8 billion का जो ट्रेड है बिटवीन यूएस, इट विल बी अ बिग जोल्ट फॉर देम. जो उनकी गारमेंट इंडस्ट्री है, मोस्ट ऑफ द एक्सपोर्ट गोज टू यूएस. सो इफ you end up paying 52% tax, that industry is completely going to collapse. Right? So Bangladesh is losing money fast, and that is what is happening with Bangladesh under Yunus. And the thing is now Yunus is trapped in his own game. He doesn't know how to come out of it.
ठीक है, लेकिन एक तरह से देखें तो अभी जो ऑपरेशन सिंदूर हुआ था उसमें पाकिस्तान को चाइनीज़ वेपन्स का काफ़ी सपोर्ट रहा था. बट हमने देखा कि चाइनीज़ मिसाइल्स फेल हुई हैं. इंडिया ने इंटरसेप्ट करी थी. जो चाइनीज़ उनकी जो एयर सिस्टम थी कि इंडिया की we were able to
the air defense system
correct, right? So we clearly right. So India's stuff was far superior than Chinese stuff. अब एक तरह से देखें कि उसके बाद से पाकिस्तान ने अमेरिका की साइड मुंह मोड़ा है. They have turned towards America. एंड बांग्लादेश जो इन अ वे आईएसआई से इंस्पायर्ड रहता है, कंट्रोल्ड सोटू से रहता है टू सर्टन एक्सटेंट, उसने भी शायद अब ऐसा लगता है कि कहीं दे आर ऑल्सो लीनिंग टवर्ड्स अमेरिका. सो क्या ऐसा कह सकते हैं कि चाइना थोड़ा बहुत व्हेन इट कम्स टू बांग्लादेश, और बिकॉज लूजिंग कंट्रोल ओवर टू मेजर कंट्रीज लाइक पाकिस्तान एंड बांग्लादेश, तो क्या चाइना थोड़ा बहुत पैनिक में आया हो, ऐसा आपको लगता है?
I don't think so. I don't think at all. On the contrary, जिस हिसाब से ये ट्रम्प का टैरिफ गेम चल रहा है, if Bangladesh is not able to crack any deal, they will be forced to sit in Chinese lap because Bangladesh के लिए US markets are big. तो Bangladesh को then they will have to look at alternate markets, right? So they need an economic support coming from somewhere. The only country who would be trying to replace that would be China. So at the moment, things are not very good between US and Bangladesh. I think Trump is pushing very, very hard in Bangladesh to get the Chinese influence out and to establish a very firm Bangladesh, US influence in the region. And he's not happy the way, Yunus basically swing towards the Chinese. So he's sending a very strong message to them. एक स्ट्रॉन्ग मैसेज भेज रहे हैं, बट चाइनीज़ विल बी वॉचिंग दिस वेरी वेरी क्लोजली. अब चाइनीज़ इक्विपमेंट ऑब्वियसली इट हैज़ नॉट बीन वेरी गुड. अभी चाइना ने ईरान को भी सप्लाई किया HQ9s. दे सप्लाई टू पाकिस्तान इट टर्न्ड आउट टू बी एन इन्फीरियर थिंग, राइट? बट दैट डजंट टेल यू द एंटायर स्टोरी ऑफ चाइना. That doesn't mean that every equipment Chinese have is bad, or that also tells you, are the Chinese willing to give these kind of countries state of the art kind of weaponry, if any they have? Are they willing to sell it to these countries? I don't think so, because if you look at these systems, Pakistan doesn't have the money to pay upfront for these systems. So most of them either come on loans or on subsidies or through some deal or the other deal. ठीक है? तो foreign exchange तो है नहीं कि वो they buy it on the table upfront saying that okay, this is for $100 million, $200 million, $300 million. We're paying China $500 million. We'll buy it. It comes more as an aid package of weapons and all that. ठीक है? So obviously you don't get the state of the art anything. You just get something which might work for you, might not work for you. So that's what we saw in Pakistan as well. As I said, Bangladesh is turning a lot into Bangladesh. Economically they're going very, very bad. That is why they're called Bangladesh for a reason. But if you look at what is happening in Bangladesh, is that on one side the Yunus has shown a lot of interest to Chinese, and that is not to counter the Americans, that is more to counter India. His calculation is that getting Chinese inside is going to keep the Indian influence away from Bangladesh and basically, become a threat to India. It's not to counter America. So his first priority is how to tackle India in a sense कि how to be anti-Indian, because जो सारा sentiment बांग्लादेश में अभी ये चला रहा है, जो सरकार चल रही है, सब इंडिया anti-India sentiment पे चल रही है, right? Everything is that it's been done by India, it's been done by that. Exactly what the Pakistanis have been doing since 1947. So they've taken that leaf out of the textbook and applied it in Bangladesh as well, and it has worked for them. So, but at the same time, Americans have their interest, and they know if China comes into Bangladesh and takes a firm grip, then it will be very difficult for them to pursue their own interest, which they have in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. Right? So that is another calculation the Americans have. That is why I think Trump is putting a lot of pressure on them, so they ease out that pressure and they give Americans what they want. Now, Americans have already got some foothold in Bangladesh. They did drop in a consignment of arms in Bangladesh, which was then for the Rakin Corridor, basically, जिसकी बात चल रही है between Myanmar and Bangladesh for the Rohingyas, for the Rohingya cause. ISI is involved into that because they want to raise that Rohingya army, which is ARSA basically. They want to rearm them, they want to retrain them, they want to them to take a corridor in Myanmar, and the corridor in Myanmar is not only countering India, it is also countering China, because the rare earth जो वहाँ पर smuggling है, जो rare earth materials हैं, America wants a bigger pie and a bigger share of it. The Chinese are the ones who are basically unhinged, unchallenged, rearing all those earth minerals, and then they are the ones who are supplying it to America on double cost. So there is a game, larger game going on. So that is what also happening in Bangladesh. Bangladesh. How much Yunus is able to concede to America, we'll have to see. They have a second round of talks happening day before tomorrow, another 2 days. I don't see much hope in terms of कि tariff जो हैं वो release होंगे या some relief will be there, but the Bangladeshis are keen कि some resolution comes through. Even if there is a, and now the Bangladeshis, now this is very, very absurd, because now Bangladeshis are saying, let us see what is the tariff Trump is going to put onto India. And if they think that India has got a better deal, then Bangladesh is doomed, right? Because we have to remember, whether we like it or we don't like it, India has a huge role to play in Bangladesh garment industry, right? We literally gifted that to them by closing down our own, or not, or I would not say closing down, I'll say neglecting our own,
right,
garment industry in India, which had a potential of a huge export. We actually neglected that, and we let Bangladesh build that. So now the Bangladesh are finding solace, saying that let's see what the deal between India and Trump is going to be. If the tariffs are going to be same, then okay. But if India gets a better deal, and I'm pretty sure India is going to work its deal out, we are already working on a mini deal, it's going to be more trouble for India, because that actually gives us a very solid platform to revive the garment industry in India. So that is trouble again for Bangladesh. And we have also put some very, very tight controls of Bangladesh when it comes to export. Corridor unka band kiya, all that has been done to basically stem their industries and put pressure on them to behave, because they have not been behaving nicely. But the Chinese will be watching it very, very closely. On the ground, I can tell you there are a lot of Chinese presence in Bangladesh at the moment, where the Chinese people are actually looking at buying a lot of factories in Bangladesh. So they're trying to take that first mover advantage in Bangladesh. Because what the Chinese believe is that if even the American market collapses for them, they have a huge European market to cater to. Right. So the Chinese are looking at it very favorably. They are thinking we can take something out of it, we can gain out of it. And they are buying factories in Bangladesh left, right, center right now. There's a huge Chinese investment coming in. Businessmen.
Right, which also is very interesting, considering China has been investing in the infrastructure in Pakistan as well as in Bangladesh very since many years, which has kind of made Pakistan its kind of rental state for China, right? How do you see this now evolving? The Western countries have not been that keen in investing in Bangladesh owing to their own political reasons. But do you see things change now with the dynamics? Because Yunus also recently talked to the new Secretary of State in the US, very recently, last week, 10 days back. And do you see this things getting eased out in near future? This with keeping in mind the China's BRI, the initiative.
See, you have to understand one thing. A lot of people say that China made a lot of investment in Pakistan and they failed. And that is true. Pakistani investments in China have gone bad. I mean, you can't dispute that. But what was the real intention of China putting money in Pakistan? It was not about increasing trade. It was not about increasing business. The business-wise, CPEC doesn't make sense. Not to the Chinese, not to any economist in the world. I'm no economist, but I can tell you a basic study and you will say it just doesn't make sense, right? If you read the Chinese documents and if you read the Chinese policy makers, they always have this say that you need to render Pakistan completely hopeless and endless economically. Because the challenge with China is that China has a huge underbelly of Xinjiang province, which is the East Turkmenistan conflict they had within themselves. The Xinjiang Muslims we are talking about. And China is very paranoid and very scared about Islamic radicalization within China. You have a huge Muslim population, the Yuan Muslims, then you have the Xinjiang Muslims, you have two different major, different kinds of ethnic Muslims in China. The Huans are more integrated into Chinese system. The Xinjiang are the ones who have been persecuted for practicing Islam in China. The Chinese calculation is that Pakistan, being the only country which basically supports, nurtures and exports terrorism, if you keep on supporting Pakistan, you will keep these terrorists away from your own borders. That is China's main calculation. And despite that, they think that once you colonize Pakistan, you don't have to physically colonize in these days. You can easily colonize somebody economically, militarily. So if you look at Gwadar, the idea was to militarily take it over. The Chinese are sitting in Gwadar airport. The immigration is Chinese, the first language is Chinese. And Gwadar airport's first language is Chinese. Gwadar airport's inside all staff is Chinese. Second language is English and third language is Urdu.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So it's clearly a Chinese, dominated place. Right. It's for China. It's for the Chinese. And the calculation is same with the Gwadar port that the Chinese Navy will be operating from there, which will have greater reach towards the Arabian Ocean and towards the Middle East and all that, right? So they want to weaken Pakistan economically. So they have put so much of money in Pakistan with all the debt trap, clauses, and Pakistan being Pakistan just took that money, and now they completely see themselves trapped with the Chinese. And now Raja Muneeb is trying very hard to get himself out of that situation, right? But the reality is Pakistan is not going to get out of the situation very easily, very quickly. It's not going to be possible. And it is not that Pakistan ka paisa kha jayega और अमेरिका उनको वेपन दे देगा. There is this thing कि वो अब चाइनीज़ को छोड़ देंगे, अमेरिकन्स के पास चले जाएंगे, अब अमेरिका इनको देगा. First of all, you have to understand that Pakistani military on itself, 83% of Pakistani military equipment is Chinese based. Right? Rest is then bifurcated into small. They have a bit of French, they have a bit of American, they have a bit of everything. But 83% they are dependent on Chinese military equipments. Their economy is CPEC. They owe about $30 billion to China. So their whole problem with China is, and they have to cede institution after institution to China if they don't pay. So the Chinese have taken over the SCC in Lahore. The Chinese have taken over the Gwadar airport for now. They'll take over the port. So slowly the Chinese plan was to colonize these places and make China very strong in these areas so that Pakistan doesn't become a very potent threat.
Right.
Now if you see what is happening in Bangladesh, it's a mirror of Pakistan, what is happening in Bangladesh. So the Chinese policy will be a mirror of CPEC in Bangladesh. And the Bangladeshis are much more cheaper to buy. And why I say that is because Pakistan is a nuclear-armed country. Their prices are high in terms of their demands are high. Because they're a bigger threat. Bangladesh is nothing like that. You pay Bangladesh $5 billion, Bangladeshis will happily hand over China to you. Yourself to China. Their demands are very low. Right? So it will be much easier for Chinese to do their debt trap policy, financial policy in Bangladesh. And then slowly take over those critical, important places in Bangladesh and strengthen their hold right from China till Myanmar till Bangladesh. And the Americans understand that. We understand that. We understand all these concerns. So we are trying, and the Americans are trying, that the Chinese influence needs to be restricted, needs to be minimized. And that is what we are working on.
Okay, I want to go back to the Rakin Corridor that we talked about earlier. Yunus was very keen when America asked to get it, he was very keen on getting it done. How does that then affect China's relationship with Myanmar?
It will. See, the point is China will hedge its bet both ways because you have to understand that, it's not the Pakistani ISI which the Bangladeshis are under a lot of influence of. It's the Pakistani Jamaat-e-Islami which is... Correct. And ISI also uses Jamaat-e-Islami to wield its influence in Bangladesh, right? That has a huge religious connotation to it. So China would also try to keep what they're doing in Pakistan by keeping all these organizations happy and funding them and then pushing them towards other countries rather than them coming into India. Yunus is keen on Rakin Corridor because of he wants this jihadi force to come into Bangladesh and then, exert its influence into Myanmar and then put pressure on India as well. He sees that as a legitimate tool. The Americans want the Rakin Corridor to reduce the Chinese effect in Myanmar. They want to overthrow the junta, they want to overthrow the other EBOs, they want to overthrow the Arakan army, they want to create their own land. So at least they have control on that piece of land, which is the Rakhine, and they bifurcate Myanmar to an extent where nobody has one absolute control on So it's a very complex, very dirty game happening. So it is not an outright win or an outright loss for anybody. It is going to be pretty much similar to what we've seen in Pakistan. Both the Americans and the Chinese have wielded for influence, and both have had, their favorable times in the region for talk. Americans have had their favorable time. Chinese have had their favorable time. So something of a similar thing might erupt in Bangladesh as well. Right, and the immediate aftermath comes on to India.
Right. So Mohammad Yunus, as we have seen that he's a caretaker, he's a chief advisor, right?
He's basically an illegitimate government.
Right.
He's not
Correct. So there have been talks of getting proper elections, democracy being restored in Bangladesh since long, despite Awami League being banned. Now that Awami League is banned, Sheikh Hasina's party, you think now that China may help bring her back in some way, to bring her back in the race for power, or how does that evolve?
You're right. Good question. First of all, we have to understand there was never a democracy in Bangladesh.
Right.
It was also pseudo-democracy, something very similar to Pakistan. Because every party which came in tried to ban or keep the other party, or there's never been a holistic, complete participation of everybody in Bangladesh to choose a legitimate leader, and that holds true for Hasina as well, right? So we have 29 coups have happened in Bangladesh till now. 29 military coups, and they from 1971 till now, the nation. So that is how unstable the Bangladeshi political history is. Now, Khalida Zia wants to come back, Tahir Rahman wants to come back, and it seems like now they have banned Awami League, so they won't be participating. So it's basically going to be Jamaat-e-Islami fighting the BNP. The BNP has supported both of the Americans, the Europeans, the UK guys, the England. And then they're also having a very good relationship with China, because China would not want Hasina back. China would actually deal with them. And Tariq Rahman was in Beijing. He was invited to Beijing, and a delegation of BNP led by Tariq Rahman was basically in Beijing. So they discussed how to go forward, right? So, and also the Bangladeshi army is in a favor of having this Rakin Corridor, because they are more aligned to the American interest. But they don't want it under Yunus, because they know the moment the Islamists take over and it happens under Yunus, then Bangladesh is going to go through a very, very bad phase. Right? So they also want that somebody, they would also like to deliver it to the Americans, but via a somewhat democratic, people chosen government. Right. It's not going to be through Yunus. The army doesn't want him, the West doesn't want him. And the West calculation is also till Yunus is there, he's a threat, because when he will switch towards the Chinese, you never know. Right? He has more inclination toward that. A person who's sitting in UK, West-leaning, he would be easier to control, or he or she would be easier to control than somebody who's a rabid Islamist. Right. So that is the calculation. That is why they want the elections in Bangladesh. And now he's under so much of pressure that if he doesn't do the elections, he's going to get very unpopular, because the economy is going for a toss. How long will Bangladeshis, listen to his nonsense of reforms? No reforms have happened till now. The only reform which is happening is bad. They're raping women left, right, and center. They're persecuting minorities. How long are you going to go with that nonsense? Right? It's not going to last long. So now he's in a catch-22 situation. He's saying that he'll get the elections done by February next year. But I have my doubts.
Okay, one last question before we conclude. Because this next year is going to be little elections happening in West Bengal as well, which shares a boundary with Bangladesh. There is cultural exchange between the two places. It was part of, So obviously things are a little, little
fluid.
Yeah.
In a light way, you can say they're a little fluid right now.
Yeah, little fluid, and also because Bengal elections are also very, very, very brutal, to put it mildly. Yeah. We saw what happened in 2021, 2026. So that is where there will be elections in West Bengal and very likely in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
How what challenges do you see when it comes to, because obviously one of the prime challenges India faces is illegal Bangladeshi immigrants,
which are living in in West Bengal anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the major challenges that Indian security forces, the Home Ministry, everyone will be facing for the next 1 year when it comes to Bangladesh and West Bengal?
See, what I see is, especially in Bangladesh and West Bengal, the major challenge is going to be for West Bengal, I'll say our Home Ministry and police has to be very careful, is of communal riots and communal divide. The Bangladeshi illegal immigrants, they would not want BJP to win this election again. They would like to keep Mamta in power. And for that, they will try to persecute the minorities. You'll see a lot of violence happening against minorities. Right? So you have this real chance of bloodshed happening in Bengal. Same is going to be the case in Bangladesh, because every political opponent is going to go after the minority and say that, try to poke a finger saying that, oh, they are linked with Awami League, they are linked with BNP, they have this and they have that. So because they want to persecute the minorities there completely and take complete dominance of that. So both these states have one very common challenge, one country and one state basically, and that is going to be violence against the minorities. You're going to have high persecution against the minorities. That is the biggest challenge I see, which is coming from the ground from both the sides.
Right. On that note, I think this just makes me feel a little sad, because at some point, all these India, Pakistan, we were all one, and now things are obviously a lot of political history, lot of bloodshed has gone through it, but it's at some level you feel bad ki yaar.
No, it's not that you feel bad, Nirva. You just feel bad for the people who are stuck into this.
Correct.
You just feel bad for
because
the
partition
for the native Indians, for the native Hindus or for the native Indians who are stuck into it. Because the problem is that partition, okay, fine, but then it's been 8 decades nearly now since partition, right? And that mindset has changed. They don't accept that you are one. They don't want to believe you are one, right? In their minds, they have changed their history. They have written false history about themselves. The Pakistanis change their fathers every 6 months. Their Abus change 6 mahine ke baad. Sometimes it's the Turks, sometimes it's the Arabs, sometimes it's the Persians. Depending on, where the favor is going to come from, Pakistanis start basically doing such stuff to them. So I don't believe that, we are all one. Definitely not the Pakistanis. We have nothing in common at all, right? Whatever we had in common got buried when our grandfathers and grandmothers passed away. From that generation on, nothing has been passed off for commonality between us and them. So I think this is a very farce kind of a thing when we say that we are all one. No, we are not. Whatever was commonality has been buried, as I said, with our grandfathers and grandmothers. Beyond that, it has never carried. We are very distinct people. We have very distinct thought processes. We are very different in terms of our outlook towards life, in terms of our philosophy of life, in terms of about approach towards life. So I don't see that there is any commonality. Yes, we were a country, a country, and we just got bifurcated, and then they metasized into something very toxic, and we have remained, succeeded to keep ourselves same. So that's how I see it. I don't see.
I think India का नसीब खराब है कि आसपास सारे टॉक्सिक लोग ही भरे पड़े हैं. But
yeah, that's
well. Okay. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today, and it has been very, very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Till next time.
And thank you so much everyone for joining us. We'll see you next Saturday at 8 p.m. Thank you.